Yeah.
Yes, someone's asking there, are we meant to see and hear each other, or has that function been turned off? And it has actually, just because we've got such a large group today and it's webinar format. It's not the way we normally work, but in a webinar, it's definitely the clearest way to communicate with people. So please feel free to ask questions, comment in chat all the way through, but you won't be able to see other people on the webinar. So anyone who's just joined us, if you wouldn't mind locating the chat icon, which is at the bottom of your screen, and just type in the chat where you are in the world. It'll be great to be able to welcome you individually if we can see that, and we'll know you can hear us. So please take a second to do that. Cockermouth in the Lake District, in the fun bus. Now, I bet you know what that reference is to, Kim, don't you?
The fun bus.
Yeah. Is Heather not someone that you know?
I know exactly what that reference is to.
Right.
She's got an amazing, what do you call it? Camper van.
Yeah.
She's having a lot of fun going around the country in. And watching the pictures that she keeps posting and getting very jealous. She's having a great time, and she deserves it because she works very hard.
You made us all jealous now. I hope your weather's good. Wild swimming, my word. That's adventurous, isn't it?
I'll need pictures, Heather.
Wild swimming in Cockermouth. My niece lives in Cockermouth. It's pretty cold up there to be swimming.
I'm not even going to give feedback on that last comment, Heather. Brilliant.
So we're at 10 o'clock, ladies. What do you think?
Yeah, well, the numbers are creeping up, but we always commit to starting on time, don't we?
Yeah. So shall we go for it?
I think we should. I mean, I can see the numbers coming in, so I think let's get started.
Brilliant. Well, thank you to everyone who said hello in the chat. Anyone else, please let us know where you are once you join. But very happy Wednesday to y'all, and welcome to Fearless Facilitation Online. We're delighted you've been able to join our webinar, and in the next hour, myself and my two business partners are going to take you on a fast-paced journey that will ultimately help you to increase the effectiveness of your meetings or training sessions, whether they be online or face-to-face. I'm going to start with a quick overview of that journey now. In a second, I'm going to hand over to Andrina, who's going to share our ways of working for today and ensure you're all comfortable with the technology. Then we'll do a very swift introduction to our team before sharing the focus of today's session. Straight after that, we'll invite you to start joining in. So you can help us understand the types of meetings you're running, and we can align our content to your challenges and opportunities. Once we have that insight, we'll walk you through our unique iceberg model and link it directly to your requirements. Andrina.
Thank you. Yes, I'd just like to talk you through the ways of working with you today. I know some of you who've just been chatting will already be familiar with some of these, but for those who haven't, your videos and microphones are turned off, and that's purely to help with any background noise, particularly as this being a webinar. We will send you copies of the slides that we're using, and we are recording this webinar today as it's our final one. Participation and feedback, we'll be asking you to join in, we'll be asking you for your feedback, and we'll show you how to do this as we actually work through the session with you. Some of you will have already found chat, but for those of you who haven't, it's located at the bottom of your screen. You'll see the little chat icon, and if you click on that, it'd be really great if you could just very quickly tell us what can you see from where you're sat today. Let's have a look at that, and don't forget to press enter because that'll send it through. The chat is open to attendees and panelists, so just make sure as well, if you have a look on there, that you're sending out your messages to us all.
Andy and Fran.
Oh, all three of you. Well, that's good. That's a good start.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I love it. I love that feedback.
Well, we have had occasions where you can only see the speaker as well, haven't you? So it's nice to see us as a team. That's very reassuring, Andy. Thank you.
So anything else that you can see from where you're sitting? I can see a very bedraggled garden from where I'm sitting, that's for sure. We've got
Sunshine. I'm getting very jealous from here. I can say seeing sunshine.
Brilliant. Just also regarding questions, Maggie mentioned earlier that we want you to ask questions throughout, but if you could put these in chat, that would be great. And if you could keep them as short as possible, that would be really helpful as well. Any questions that we can't actually answer today due to time, then we will be answering and sending out with the slides for you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Andrina. So if you can put the next slide up, please. Great. So I've already said hello, but just so you can put a face to the name, that's me on the left of the photograph. I've been running my own training consultancy, which is called 3D Development, for over 17 years, specialising in executive coaching, business modelling, and of course, facilitation. Andrina?
Hi, I'm Andrina. And I've been in my business also for 20 plus years, Andrina Backhouse Limited. I'm really interested in people and behaviour, so I do a lot of management development and team building, work with businesses from chemicals to retail and care homes to quarries, so quite diverse. Kim.
Hi, I'm Kim. I'm the one in the middle. So my business is You and I. Again, running at the same period as Margaret and Andrina, around about 20 years. I work across sector and specialise in areas such as facilitation, coaching, client relationship management, problem solving and decision making. So we sort of cover quite a lot of areas. And also we actually, as you can see, have got our own businesses, but it's probably useful for me to explain to you why we're on screen together today. So we do collaborate, although we've got our own clients, we collaborate and have done for a long time, about 15 years now. And we don't just enjoy working together, we support each other and we share lots of tools and techniques between us. But there's one particular model that we decided a couple of years ago that's worked really well for us that we wanted to share more broadly. And so we came together and, crikey, a couple of years ago, we started running masterclasses on our facilitation model around the country. So we were working up and down the country and just sharing the model that was going down really well, getting great feedback. And then the 23rd of March happened. And actually everything changed for everybody. And we moved everything online. So within a week, we've got everything set up online. And we were doing a lot of work supporting our clients on actually running effective meetings online and training sessions. So that's where our focus went. And we want to share some of the experience we've had and some of the success we've had with that. Just one final comment. As you can see, my Westie Matilda's on that picture. For most of lockdown, she's been my biggest challenge in terms of background noise, but you'll be pleased to know she's actually having a play day today in the kennel. So I'll be hearing her.
Okay. Thanks, Kim. So we've got 60 minutes today. We've got a large group. So we knew it would be critical that we had clear focus. So our webinar today just has 3 key objectives. We want to share with you. We know that you're already influential in your organisations because you lead meetings, but we're confident that if you apply our model and the tips, tools and techniques that we're going to share, it'll enable you to achieve more in less time, as well as increasing your sphere of influence. We want to listen to you. We've already invited you to share some stuff with us, and we're going to be asking you questions and inviting you to share ideas as well in the chat throughout the session. Help us deepen our understanding of the world you operate in. And that means we can then tailor the examples that we're sharing, etc., because we've got a myriad of examples. We want to share the right ones for this group. And we want to give you some stuff. We want you to rest assured that everything we share is tried and tested across a broad range of organisations, so we know it works. And the more feedback you can give us as we work together, the better we can understand your challenges and ensure that we share the right examples. Now, by now, I'm sure you're aware that we're very passionate around facilitation. We've got a real broad mix in the group today. Could you put the facilitation quote up, Andrina, please? Thank you. And for many of you, I'm sure you share that passion and you understand facilitation. But for others, it'd be fair enough for you to think, facilitation, what are you talking about? I just run meetings. And that's why we wanted to share this brief definition. So I'll be quiet and give you a few seconds just to read it. Now, when you reflect on the definition, I'm sure you recognise it absolutely does apply to you. Anyone who works with groups to get results is aiming to increase participation and agreement, generate ideas, solve problems. We all need to reduce the length of time that meetings take out of people's busy diaries, and improving your facilitation skills is definitely the difference that will make the difference for you. Some people will be leading senior leadership strategy sessions, while some people are just seeking to keep morale going while everyone's working in virtual teams and not getting together. As facilitators, we're sure you'll recognise that people, rather than saying or doing things to them, we want to do things with them as facilitators. And we have way more input by doing that, and way more impact and increased ownership. Anyway, enough from me. I'm really interested to understand how this relates to you now. And Andrina has a poll for us, I think.
Yes, I'd just like to have a look at how you use facilitation and how this works in your world. So for those of you who are familiar with the poll, you'll know how this works. For those of you who aren't, what we'd like you to do is just look at the questions below. How do you use facilitation? Please click on as many as you like. And if you click on other, can you share that example in chat for us? That's great. Thank you, everybody, for clicking on there. We've got quite a lot of people using it for team meetings. It's just a few people who haven't yet voted. If you could click on for us. We've got 64% of you have voted. If the rest of you could click on the areas that you use facilitation in, that would be great. Thank you. We've got nearly all of you now. Okay, let's have a look at the results. Predominantly team meetings and training. Can you tell me what's in the chat there, Kim or Margaret, in other?
Yeah, we've got facilitate co-creation processes and change in brackets there, family meetings, which is interesting, collaborative workshops and brainstorming.
Great, that's interesting. Yes, quite
Brilliant.
Diverse. Brainstorming.
Great.
That's really useful.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that, everybody. Okay, Kim.
Okay, thank you. I've already mentioned that we have a model of facilitation, and the reason that we use this model is it is very simple, but it's very effective. And when we started delivering our masterclasses, when we wanted to share this, what we realised was that a lot of people have got different perceptions or understanding of what that facilitation word means. So we decided that the best way for us to communicate what it meant was to turn it into something practical that people could relate to and use. And this is the model that we've been using for around about 15 years. We've used it both face-to-face, online, and it works. So it is tried and tested. And actually, what I just want to do is briefly explain how it fits together and why it's an iceberg. And then we'll share some of the model with you today. With the time that we've got, we're going to give you a bit of a flavour of each of the sections of the model and how that will help you have some practical skills to help you facilitate. And the important thing about it is that it includes all the elements of facilitation. It's not about selecting out a section of the model and using it. It's about using the whole model. And if you use the whole model, we've had some great success watching facilitators work and actually get great results from meetings when they've actually designed, run and used the model as part of their toolkit. The model itself is an iceberg for a reason, and we're going to explain that to you. And we're going to talk you through, the tip of the iceberg that sits above the water, and then all the work that needs to go in that's below the waterline that some people don't always see or appreciate. It can be used to help you plan meetings. So as a tool in itself, as a visual tool, we use it as a framework with some of our clients to help them plan effective meetings. It can also be used as a tool to help you diagnose maybe why your meetings aren't working that well. So it helps you identify what's working and what's not. We've also got a framework that supports the model that helps you identify development needs against facilitation. So you can use it as a tool to develop your people with. And also, we're using it a lot at the moment to review and feedback to clients on their meetings. So we're sitting in a lot of online meetings where we then use the iceberg as a framework to give feedback against. So there's quite a lot of learning can come out of it being used as that learning review framework in itself. So very practical as a tool in terms of the iceberg, but we want to take you into the iceberg in a little bit more detail so that we can actually give you some practical tips around each of the sections. So what I'll do is I'll hand back to Andrina, because it'd be useful to understand a little bit more about the things that maybe you're having some challenges with, so that we can relate some of the tools to what matters to you.
Thanks, Kim. So yes, over the past few months, as Kim mentioned, we've been working with lots of different clients and running our Fearless facilitation, online webinars, etc., and workshops. And we've had some feedback from our clients as to what their current challenges are. And we just want to find out really a little bit about you. And we're interested to get your thoughts on what is affecting you. So again, I'm going to put another poll up here. I think you're all familiar now with how this works. So we'd like you to just have a think about what challenges are you facing at the moment when you're facilitating online. We've put down here some from our clients, and we asked you, some of you have contributed, people who are on the webinar today have put their contributions in. We sent a letter out early on. If you've got something that's different, please put it in the chat box, let us know what it is so we can appreciate your example. So just click on as many as you like. There's no limit. And if you've got different challenges, then it'd be great if you can put them in chat for us. Remember to press enter so that those send through to us. Okay, that's nearly half of you have voted. Just a few more to go. Just give you a little bit of time to put your examples into chat for those of you who have something different than we've already come across. That's great. We've got nearly 80% of you have voted, just a few more. Okay, I'll show you these results. If you've got anything else you want to put into chat, please continue to do so. It's open for the whole of the session. But we seem to have participants not paying attention or doing other things, doing different stuff. Seems to be the predominant one there. What sort of things have we got in chat?
We've definitely got a couple of people commenting on the technology, which I think is part of the deal at the moment. I know personally, I work every day on Teams or Zoom. I've had 3 power cuts over the last couple of weeks, which has been interesting in itself. So connectivity, IT type skills or broadband issues. There's certainly some great feedback about just being not able to get that feel of what's going on out in the audience as easily, or not quite knowing whether people are seeing things or understanding things in the right way. People's attentions level, it's difficult to gauge attention levels and not picking up on those non-verbals that you might have if you're working with people face to face. I'm going to just laugh at what Emma's put up, because I can relate to it. Knowing I should be looking at the camera, actually it's whether you're looking at the screen or looking at the camera, it's actually just knowing what that's like for your audience and the people out there. It can be really confusing. That's a really good one. Have a look at any more. Some really good ones there. And so actually, that just the one that I haven't picked up about managers sending more junior colleagues who maybe are not as used to the format of an online session, and that then affects how confident they are about speaking up. That's a really good one, Elizabeth. We maybe think about a couple of examples we've had where that's happened that we can feed back to you.
Yeah, and I think the important, participants not paying attention, that's something that we're going to be talking about during today's session, aren't we? How do you keep them engaged?
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for sharing that. Very interesting.
That's great. And the good news is, as we work through our model now, what you'll find is a lot of the answers are within the model. So it's good to hear some of those challenges and we can relate them back. So it's my job now to talk about focus, which is above the waterline, as you'll see on our model. So you would think we would see lots of activity there because that's the bit that's above. But in fact, we don't see lots of activity there. And what we see is people dashing into meetings without really being clear about what they're trying to achieve. We personally invest lots of time in this stage, and we work really hard to establish the why of any meeting or training session. So that's what specifically you want to achieve and with who, which is interesting when you talk about junior people coming to meetings. Because if, for example, your meeting is about making decisions and you've not got the right level of authority there, right away you're setting up to fail. So that's one of the things to think about. But it really is critical to have clear focus and understand as much as possible about your group before you even think about designing a session or working with a stakeholder. Because as facilitators, we're responsible for leading the group on a journey, if you like. And I don't know if you've done any reading on Stephen Covey, but one of his principles is start with the end in mind. And our clients' needs definitely vary greatly. So sometimes sessions need to generate ideas, drive decisions, improve teamwork, or solve problems, and a myriad of other reasons. But for the outcome to be clear, we need to really clarify that first of all. So we ask lots and lots of questions, and then we make sure that we can write the outcomes down in clear, concise sessions. And that's a really good test, really clear, concise sentences, sorry. That's a really good test, because if you can't do that, you don't truly understand what you're aiming for and you can't communicate it clearly, which is really important. Once we've got those outcomes established, then we start to reality check and we ask questions about how many people have we got, because that makes a big difference in terms of how we run the session. How much time have we got available, which of course has a big impact on design. We find out what the group we're working with already knows about the topic, and we find out about the lead time, really importantly, because what we want to do is maximize the time people have collaborating on screen, discussing, exploring, interpreting, etc. And we do that by building in offline work before they come to the meeting. So anything that they can do individually, maybe reading, research, reviewing a case study, that kind of thing, we build that in before they even come to the session. So we don't have that thing where you're scratching your head on a session thinking, oh, what's an example for me? People turn up focused and ready to learn, which is really good. So we've got a large group today and it's difficult for us, but we have certainly, when you registered, looked you up on LinkedIn. We've asked for your requirements in the welcome email, and we've gained insights already in terms of polls and questions in chat. That's probably the best we can do now. But for you, there's lots of opportunity to kind of proactively profile your groups. You could send out questionnaires, you can speak to their managers, you can make pre-session calls, send out detailed questions, etc. So that can really help when you actually get into the session, which is really important. Now, when we get to the session itself, one of the things we use to save time is our car park. And I've got that up behind me. You can probably see that behind me. And this is really important. You talked about running over time, going off at a tangent. And what we do when we start to run a meeting is we check the objectives with everybody, or the outcomes, and say, is this right? Everybody on the same page. And once they agree, we say, okay, if anything comes up that's out of scope, then what we're going to do is we're going to stick it on a post-it note and we're going to put it on our car park. So for example, Kim did a bit of talking there about IT and platforms, etc. But it's not really about that, this. So if we had lots of questions about that, we might put IT issues on our car park and say, okay, we've done what we can about that, but the meeting is really focusing on different things. What we can do then is we can come back to this at the end of the session when we're doing action planning. So the person who's raised the issue, which could potentially take us off at a tangent, feels listened to, they feel understood. We've captured it so it doesn't get lost, but we've not wasted any time and we've not spoiled the flow of our meeting. So that's really important. Another thing to bear in mind is I'm sure many of you have had the same thing as we've had, where a client says, that one-day workshop you did was brilliant, it had real impact. I wonder, can you possibly do that online, but we only want a 1 hour session? And what you want to do, of course, your gut reaction is, no, absolutely, it won't work. But we don't say no, we spend more time understanding what the client really wants as an outcome. And we look at what we can build in offline and online to maximize the time. And that saves us a lot of time, which means it's not as difficult to time manage. So just back to the car park to finish, what that does is it gives them subliminal messages that they need to stay on track, makes them feel valued and respected, but it minimizes any potential waste in time. So
okay. Kim's got a question for you.
Yeah.
Can I just pick up Andy's question, because I think it fits in with what you've just mentioned.
Yeah.
Andy's just asked about, do you find that individuals actually do the offline work before the meeting though?
Yeah, that's a really
we've had a lot of experience of that, to be honest.
We have, and we work really closely with clients to help them see the importance of it and the what's in it for them of doing that work so that they get the outcomes they want. We find the language change makes a big difference. We used to call it pre-work, if we're honest. That makes it sound not very pleasant and something you can ignore. When we talk about offline work, when we send it out to people, we explain how it will help them to have done it. We also talk to our clients about making it mandatory. And we've got some great clients who do things like, we have one who has an online university. And what they've done is built a checklist of the offline work, and people have to confirm that they've done it before they can register for the program. So we find that's minimizing a lot of those issues. But it definitely has been an issue for us, but I think we've managed it in that way.
Yeah, we've actually had some really good success with changing the terminology.
Yeah.
And just the work that's sent out is, because it's called offline and online, it's almost got equal importance, but both of those different types of work are connected up to the objectives Maggie's explained that are key. So they can see how the offline work helps them achieve those objectives.
Yeah.
Definitely improving on that one.
Yeah, good question, Andy.
And sorry, just another one. Can I pick up, Maggie, about the three of us working together? Just around, the fact that with the bigger group, that focus setup is about saying, actually, would it be better for us to run a session as a team so that we agree clear roles and responsibilities of how we work together? We'll talk to you later about the amount of feedback that's coming through the technology. It actually can be really useful to think, can I run this on my own, or do I need to work with some of my colleagues and be clear about the roles that we're going to play in, create that engagement, but also manage the feedback that's coming in through the technology.
Yeah, roles and responsibilities are really important, actually. One of the things that I found is sometimes you get a subject matter expert working with you, so you're facilitating, but they're giving some information within the session. And it's really important to work with them and clarify who's doing what, when, and why, so that they actually contribute the information and allow questions, allow people to reflect, etc. And everybody knows what they're doing, so that your audience feels comfortable working with those roles and responsibilities. Brilliant, thank you. And Andy seems happy with the answer to that question, which is great. So we've covered a lot so far, so I think it might be worth doing a brief summary now. So we promised you 5 tips, tools and techniques, and we're only 26 minutes in and we've already exceeded that. So you can see the list there of the things that we've covered already. Now we're really keen to get some feedback from you and find out which of those resonate with you most. And we've put numbers on them deliberately, so you can have a look and think, yeah, that really struck a chord with me, etc. And we're going to invite you to put those numbers in chat now. So if you can just look at the list and say, oh yeah, maybe 1, 3, 5, whatever it is for you, resonated with me, and put those in chat for us, that will be great. We'll give you a minute to think about that.
got car park and
Yeah,
ways of working.
expectations, car park again.
Love the car park.
Yeah, it really does work. When we started going online, we thought, can we still do this? And actually, I didn't mention, I had my flip chart behind me to remind you that you can bring things from the classroom online. What we also do, if that's not possible, is we do a slide board online, so you can do it just as easily online as well.
Great, 2, 6 and 4. And actually that's quite an interesting one about, you don't always have the option. It's great to work as a team, but if you do work on your own,
yeah,
that's not always an option. Thank you for feeding that back.
Yeah. And one of the things I find with that is I always think worst case scenario. So if I'm working on my own, I think, what if that all went wrong? And I always have a backup plan that's simple, piece of paper and a pen, or physically putting your hand up and that kind of thing. So if you think about that backup plan before when you're on your own, then you're not scared of something happening.
Great, that's good feedback. All of them. Thanks, Sophie.
That's great. I'm glad those things have resonated with you. There's a good broad range there, which is not surprising given people are using meetings and training for different reasons. So
yeah, and we will connect some of these up to particularly online sessions as we go through the rest of the model.
Yeah, brilliant. So I think you're going to walk us through the other layers now, Kim, are you?
I am. I'm going to pick up on the areas that sit below the waterline, because as I mentioned earlier, there's an awful lot of work goes into well-run meetings. I think the important thing is when you're running great meetings, they're not happening by accident. They're happening because you are doing the right things. And that's really important. And sometimes your audience doesn't appreciate the amount of work that's gone into creating that success. So I'm going to start working below the waterline on the first area of the iceberg, which is about format. And format is a word that we use, which we associate with that word design. So when we're designing our meetings, what we are looking for is we're looking at how we create engaging and productive meetings. Now, the word that most people associate with meetings is the word agenda. And agendas are important, but often agendas show what you're going to cover in a meeting. And the thing about that's actually key. The thing about meetings that are facilitated and more so online is it's not so much the what, it's the how that becomes important. If you want meetings to be engaging and you want meetings to encourage sharing and participation, it's about how you do that. So it's only when you've thought about the how you can associate time, because it's the how that takes up the time. So for example, if you want to create participation and engagement, how are you going to do that? It could be that you want to do that and it could take 5 minutes or it could take 20 minutes. The how is really important from a time management point of view, and even more so important from a facilitation point of view. When we look at formats, we look at a format and we want to see where facilitation's happening. Let me give you an example of what we mean when we use the word format. This is the tool we use to help us design and run our meetings. And we'd use this face-to-face, but we actually use this online in a slightly different way. So the format is a framework, and it goes right from that focus that Maggie talked about. So it's been clear about what you want to achieve. And then the format is almost your storyboard of how you're going to get there. And it's broken down into some manageable chunks because, as we all know, time online runs away with us. So that time management element of facilitating online becomes absolutely key. And we are really clear about what we want to do with people, how that's going to achieve what we want to achieve, and also how we get that feedback. So let me give you, rather than talk about a blank one, let me give you an example of the format we've used for you today, because we have a format for all of the meetings that we run and facilitate. This is the top of our format for today. And as you can see, it is about, we have some really quite focused objectives. Very rarely with online sessions, because I know from a time point of view, most of my online sessions are between 90 minutes and 2 hours. And if I do 2 hours, there's definitely a break in between. So they're punchier, they're shorter. And so they need punchier objectives. We very rarely have more than about 3 objectives for our online sessions. And also, we're very clear about meetings at the moment online are more of a, we see them more as part of a process than an end result in themselves. So it might be that you can achieve some of the objectives offline, and then you think about how you use your contact time online to the best effect. So that offline work is becoming far more important. And also it just means that you're not trying to pack too much into the online time. And it's quite tiring being in an online session. Trying to cover too much can really disengage your audience. And some of that offline work might well be how we set up ways of working, so we're managing the expectations of the people coming to the session. And you will have had an invite from us about today, and sometimes our ways of working, we communicate in that invite. We help people understand what the setup's going to be. We try and put them at ease. And also, as an example, from a technology point of view, sometimes where we've got people who are not as comfortable with technology, we've done something offline with them or had mini sessions to put them in a good place when they eventually do come online, and then they can participate with a little bit more confidence. So a little bit more contact with people offline as well as online. And we've mentioned about being really clear about roles and responsibilities, particularly if you're going to work as a team. And I've seen a few meetings that I've done some observations of meetings probably where I hadn't seen those roles and responsibilities agreed. And you can see on screen where people are interrupting each other or trying to sort of talk over each other, which is quite hard to do online. So if you haven't agreed roles and responsibilities, if you're delivering with other people, it sort of shows a lot more on screen. And then thinking about the tools you're going to use to create some of that engagement or manage that feedback. That's the top of our format for today. Let me show you the bottom section, which is how we then break down the chunks of time that we need to manage to hit those objectives and manage that size group. As you can see, we've got a section at the end which we call creating digital body language. And that's because we need to think and be a bit more proactive online about checking understanding, creating that feedback, and actually just looking at how we're going to get that engagement to happen. When you're working face to face, you tune in to the people that are with you, particularly in things like team meetings, where you've got people maybe in a room or around a table, and you can pick up on some of those clues around body language and how people are feeling and behaving. Online, you have to be more proactive and create that. It is not there for you in the same way. And I know that I've had quite a lot of feedback where people have described online sessions a bit like broadcasting into a big black hole, and it not being comfortable for them because they're used to getting that feel of where their audience are at. Just that you have to make that happen. And sometimes it's about thinking from a technology point of view, how can I get that feedback? So we've used chat with you today, we've used the poll with you today, we've thought about how we can get you involved and engaged in the session. And there are other options of how you can do that as well. But the technology is part of the deal with online. And it is about getting that ongoing feedback and designing that into your format. You're getting that digital body language coming through. And that, I know from a personal point of view, I then start feeling that connection a lot more with the audience. Plus, I want to know where my audience is at. I want to know what's important to them. I want to know where their understanding is and whether what I'm delivering is making sense. So those sort of stages of how am I going to create that in my format become absolutely key. You can probably see that there's an element of that digital body language section that's highlighted in green. And that's because the other thing we look at with our format is we look at whether we're helping people take in information, learn and engage. And one of the ways we do that is we've got what we call a filter. So our filter is just appreciating the things that actually can help people engage. And that filter is you see those four heads. If we start with inform, when you're working online, how you're presenting and giving people information can either be engaging or disengaging. So you've got to really think about you've got to really think about whether you're using things like slides to help people, because I think the interesting thing about slides is that how you're giving information on slides is with online work, people are using more slides, interestingly, rather than less. And they're using more slides, but with less on them, because that information is being given in a really clear way. I work with a group that do a lot of benchmarking and work with data. And we've had some really interesting conversations about how they are using data on online sessions that's not overloading the people that are actually needing to take that in. How you give information can either create engagement or not. The relate one is how are you making what you're delivering relevant to the people that are in your meeting? So how are you connecting up with things that matter to them? So as we've mentioned, we ask for feedback with the offline work. We ask for people to connect through chat and polls to get their input, because we want to make sure we're relating our meetings to what matters to the people in the room. If they can't see what's in it for them, you're not going to have that engagement happening. The other things as well is in creating participation, it's almost that the difference between a driver and a passenger mentality in meetings. So I know that, well, hopefully, when you're a driver in a car, you tend to pay, or hopefully pay a little bit more attention to what's going on around you. Whereas when you're a passenger in a car, you sort of sit back a little bit and you've got that option to disengage. What we do with our online meeting design is we look to create that driver mentality. So we create participation. We give people the chance to get involved and give us feedback and share their views and their ideas. As you can see with the last box, which is the think, there needs to be space when you're delivering online for people to actually reflect and think. And the temptation is online is you sort of fill space and you fill silence. But as Maggie did earlier on, if you're going to give people things to do or things to read, then it can be useful to just have a few seconds of quiet time and give them permission to think, because that can help a lot of people digest information. The pace of delivery is important. I know one of the stats we're often quoted is that it can take from you asking somebody a question, then responding, coming through in the technology, it can take around 25 seconds for that question to go from your mouth to their head to their fingertips, for it to then come through to you in the technology. So it's giving them space to think, but it's also giving yourself some space to make sure when you're asking for feedback that people have got the time to do it. So we use that filter to do that reality check. We think about the people dynamic and we link that people dynamic to our format design. And we go, are we doing these things? Are we creating engagement? Are we got the digital body language that's going to help get that engagement and feel as though we're working with the group rather than broadcasting to the group? I think I've noticed there's a question coming. I don't know whether...
Yeah, shall I pick that up? Another great question from Andy asking about a clear definition of digital body language. He was getting it as you were explaining it, but was looking for a clear definition. So if I give mine and then you can add in. So for me, that's just about getting feedback from your audience to check that they're on board and they're moving through the journey with you, because there's no point you carrying on if they're not. So it's lots of simple ways. So it could be a tick or a cross. It could be putting a stamp on something. It could be if they're on screen, you verbally asking them a question and then putting the hand up and things like that. So it's any way you can get a reaction from your audience that you would normally get face to face, and you use the technology to do it. And there's lots of opportunities to do that. Now, today's a webinar, so we're not doing that. But when we're doing interactive sessions, we put lots of other techniques in to get that digital body language back. And just another thing to mention with the challenges earlier, people not paying attention was one of the biggest challenges, and not participating enough. The more we create this digital body language, the more people are having to do things and they recognize they need to sit up and pay attention because you're requesting things of them. So it's really hard to passively carry on writing a checklist or something like that while you're working. So I hope that helps. Anything to add, Kim?
No, I think, I mean, digital body language was a term that came out in, I think it was the 90s. It's a marketing term originally. about how shoppers obviously shop and how people look at some of that feedback digitally to help them actually promote their businesses online. So I think what becomes really important is tailoring it to facilitation is really about how you get that feedback, how you actually work with your audience, and also how you make it engaging for them. And engagement is as much about them thinking as it is about them doing. And I think the important thing is the power of the pause with online sessions is absolutely critical. I got some feedback from a group last week that said they're in Microsoft Teams meetings about 6 times a day, and their meetings have turned into presentations because they were actually saying, actually, we're not in meetings, we're in presentations because there's no engagement. And often the presentation is about just packing stuff in and almost overloading us with information. So it is about getting the feedback from your audience, well, about whether it's working for them. You know, and we've asked feedback often, do you want us to speed up or do you want us to slow down? And just getting that feedback helps you work with the group.
Yeah, and just another good comment coming from Elizabeth, saying she's been on a number of meetings where the host isn't on camera. And surely that's the starting point to digital body language. And of course it is, because facilitation is all about connection. So we're just trying to create that connection wherever we can, and where we can use the technology really frequently to keep getting feedback, we do that. So absolutely.
Yeah, actually, just to pick up on Elizabeth's points about Teams as platform, because I know we do work a lot on Zoom, but I'm doing a huge amount of work on Teams at the moment. And I know that platform in October, there's lots of changes coming on Teams. I know they're introducing their breakout groups, which is great to hear. But there isn't quite as much flexibility with some of the polling on Teams, but you can download some of the apps and connect them up to Teams to get some of that polling happening. There are opportunities with Teams, and it's definitely getting better, which I'm really grateful for, because I know it's been quite a challenge for me getting some of that engagement through that platform.
Okay, so on engagement, should we move on to the framework, Sandrine?
Absolutely, thank you. Yeah, really interesting conversations around engagement, because this really highlights for us the importance of using tools and frameworks to keep people involved and focused and keep them on track, and turning ideas or conversations into actions. We need to spend time creating engagement. I know Kim mentioned this. It needs to be built into your design, into your format. And if you can begin engagement pre your meeting or pre your workshop, that can be really helpful. I know that we sent out an invitation to you explaining the ways of working for today, because we wanted people to feel confident and comfortable when they're contributing. So during your meeting, you might want to open up discussions and participation. You might want to explore possibilities in a nice, free-flowing, non-linear way. We call this divergent thinking, and this can include generating ideas, sharing feedback, problem solving. It could be about reviewing progress. But what's really important is people need tools and techniques to help them actually make some sense and order of this, and also to help them participate comfortably. And that helps with the engagement as well, which is really, really important. It helps us to get their buy-in. And they need to know how to do this. And this can also be done offline before the session. And I think, again, we have mentioned it, but we've been doing some work, team building sessions, and what we've done is we've given the group some thinking time offline before they actually join us. The thing that's really important here is that we need to make the offline work really easy and accessible and user friendly, because once people start seeing anything that looks difficult, then it can put them off doing it. So keep it really nice and simple, nice and easy and accessible, user friendly for them. So we get the ideas from them, offline, and then we share these on screen when we join, and we can then start to prioritize using one of our frameworks. So once the team have discussed and generated ideas, we need to turn these ideas into a meaningful action or actions, narrowing them down and verifying them against our focus. This is called convergent thinking, by the way. So our toolkit of Fearless Frameworks does just that. Here, there's a few examples on screen. I know you can't read them, but just a few examples of the sorts of things that we might use, but we have over 50 of them at the moment, and we're continually developing more. So during our 2-hour interactive sessions, which you might have noticed online, we demonstrate how to use some of these. Obviously today, unfortunately, due to the time that we've got, we are limited, but we are going to give you our popular traffic light action planning tool, and we're going to email this to you along with the slides. Just before I finish, I'd just like you to point your attention to the bottom of the iceberg where it says conflict. And the reason we haven't done much on conflict today is because if you're facilitating at the bottom of that iceberg, it can feel like you're really drowning, and it's very, very, very hard work. We don't want to do much on conflict because there's a reason, and that reason is our model is designed to take out unnecessary conflict. If people are clear about the focus, they're engaged, they work effectively. We've actually worked on putting the filter on the format as well. So we're thinking about the people dynamics. Then people will be engaged and they will work effectively together. However, if you do feel that the meeting or your session is getting a bit out of control, or people are looking disengaged or not contributing, then we promise you that if you work your way back up through that iceberg, the clues will be there as to why this is happening. And that's why the iceberg is such a great planning and review tool in itself. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So we've covered a lot there in a short time. So here's another summary for you. Now you'll see that up to number 6 you've already seen. But since then, Kim's added some great stuff on format and people dynamics, as well as digital body language. So we're sure by now you know some new stuff that you didn't know before, but we all know that it's not knowing that makes the difference, it's doing it that makes the difference and will make your meetings more effective. So we're going to invite you now to just reflect on that list again and think about which of those things you're actually going to apply after today's session, because it's the doing it that will make the difference. So can you please use the numbers again to put numbers in chat of the things that you're actually going to apply off that list. So I'm going to use the power of the pause again and let you do that.
Filter body language coming through.
Mm-hmm.
All. That's an easy one, Heather, for me to pick up. The model itself coming through quite strongly.
Good.
The format.
Boo says probably all.
We've got the focus, getting focus, setting those objectives and learning about the audience coming through from Natalia. The iceberg's coming through quite strongly. The car park, well, real good range here.
Yeah, just picking up on another question from Andy. Filter on the format is really what we do when we've done our design and we look at our format, which is a storyboard of how we're going to work, and we just consider the different ways people think and take on information. And then we check out, have we left enough space for people to think? Have we put in enough time for people to get involved, etc.? So we look at each one of those heads on the slide and say, if people think this way, have we done enough for them? And for us, it's like the icing on the cake, really, that we've put something in to help everybody learn and to keep them engaged and help them pay attention. So that's what it is for us.
That's helped. Maggie.
Good. Okay, so I'm just conscious of time now. We were going to build in question and answers here, but I think we'll move it just to the end, because what we also want to offer is a 15-minute after party. So if anyone's got any additional questions and they want to stay on, then that's absolutely fine. But what I'll do now is I'll just run through the rest of the slides, and then anytime we've got left, we can answer questions. So what's really important for us is to always check our focus again. Have we done what we said we were going to do? So we said we were going to share, and hopefully we've not only shared, but we've demonstrated what we're talking about as we go through. We've asked questions, we've used polls to gain insights, and to make that content more relevant, and hopefully being able to relate back to your challenges that you mentioned earlier. And we've definitely listened to you as much as we can on a webinar. And we've done what we like to do and under-promised and over-delivered. So we promised 5 practical tools and techniques and we've delivered over 10 now. So you'll also get some takeaways. What will you take away? Well, we'll happily send you the slides. We recognise we may have missed 1 or 2 questions, although we've done our best to keep up. But you've been really engaged and the chat's been coming thick and fast. So thank you for that. Don't worry about that because we'll send out a full question and answer summary to everyone with the slides. As an added bonus, as Andrina mentioned, we're going to give you our traffic lights framework, which is a really good, simple one, similar to the car park, but what it does is draws back all those action plans to make sure you've got clear actions emerging from your meetings. But we all know great meetings end with commitment to action, and that tool allows you to get that commitment to action quickly and easily. So hopefully by now you've got a flavour of who we are and how we can help you. But the best way to summarise that is really to share our values. So you've got the values at the top of the slide there. We live by our values, and they're probably best illustrated by examples of projects we've completed over the past few months. So as Kim intimated, we were running a really successful masterclass. It was face-to-face, it was all over the country. And what we've done is we've been able to put that online, and we've worked with a company called Cook Foods with their L&D team. We've tailored that masterclass for them and we've put it online, and that's worked really successfully. So we can do that really well in-house. We really enjoy empowering teams as well. So we often work in partnership with organisations, with their L&D teams to help them create the most impactful design for their meetings. And we've done that with a company called IRI Global, big IT company, and we've helped them. So they've taken the lead, we've empowered them to run really effective sessions. And I guess the bravery bit comes from when we constructively challenge our clients and work with them to get even better results than they imagined, because people don't always know what they want. So we listen very carefully to what they want, and then we delve deeper by asking coaching questions and come up with options to help them achieve that. And we've done that with organisations as diverse as farming, the NHS, global finance teams. And with everyone, what we've been able to do is tailor make what we design to match their unique cultures and long-term strategies, because language makes a big difference as well, working with their language. But that's not all. If you're an individual looking to build on your facilitation skills, then our 2-hour paid programme might be a great next step for you. And what we do here is we break down the iceberg into different sections. We've already run this a number of times, not just individuals in open programmes, but in-house for L&D teams, and tailored it for them. And been really surprised how quickly it accelerated both their confidence and competence. As I said, you can also apply to come on our open programme. Currently we're sold out, but if you email us, we'll put you on a waiting list to make sure you don't miss out. Just for information, you'd be pleased to know there's no hard sell at the end of this webinar, just an invitation to get in touch. And here's all the way to do it. You can contact any one of us in the best way to suit you for a no obligation chat, and we'll be happy to help. No need to scribble it down because you'll get the slides and all the contact details will be there. Quick shout out to Mike Pye there. He's our marketing guru. He's probably the reason so many of you are here today, and it's great to have you on board. But one thing we consistently strive for is continuous improvement. And as you know, we can't do that without seeking feedback. So finally, we'd like to share with you another of our fearless frameworks, which is rapid research. And I'm going to hand over to Andrina to launch that poll.
Thanks, Maggie. Yep, as you said, we just want to get some rapid research before the end of our session, just to find out a couple of things from you. First of all, today's session, has it been engaging and useful? And just click on this if you agree with it. Or I've taken away tools and techniques I can use. Again, if you click on that, if you agree with that. And if you've got anything other, as usual, pop it in chat so we can see that. That would be absolutely great. Okay, nearly everybody's voted. Just waiting for a few more. It's really good that we get your feedback, and thank you for putting it in other as well. You can also put it in chat when we've finished. We're going through the Q&A session.
Yeah, comments in chat will be great for the receive, because that often gives us more insight as well, in terms of what you particularly found useful, and of course anything that was less useful.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much. I'm just sharing the results with you, and as I say, you can continue to put things in chat. That would be really helpful for us. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. So our time management has been pretty good, actually. We've got 3 minutes to spare, so we can take questions in that. But also the after party is there for 15 minutes if you want to stay on. All that remains for those people who have to rush off to the next meeting is to thank my fellow fearless facilitators, Kim and Andrina, for their brilliant input. Thank you for listening, and remind you to make that call if you need our help, and invite you to go forth and be fearless. We hope we've helped you to do that. Stay safe and have a fantastic rest of the day or evening wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much. And I think the panel are open for questions now, aren't we, ladies?
We are.
Great. So go for it with any questions in chat, and we'll be happy to answer them.
I've been responding in chat to a couple of the questions that have been coming up. It's like we'll send out the recording, people asking about the cost of the online, the shorter sessions, which again will confirm with everything we send out.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah, because if that waiting list builds up, we can we'll soon put an extra session.
We could actually look at some new dates.
Yeah.
Ladies, I'm going to stop the recording now because we can do the Q&A without that.
Okay.